See your there you go. You're good to go.
Merry Christmas and welcome to the December 13th, 2018 meeting of, I almost said the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission, but this is the Rutherford County Commission. Mayor Bill Ketterin is traveling with the MTSU Blue Raider football team tonight. I'm Jeff Phillips, the Chairman Pro Tem, and I'll be filling in. At this time, I'll introduce Craig Harris, and Craig will come up and introduce our guest tonight, who will be saying our prayer. If you would all stand with us, please.
When I got elected, I was honored. And when I got to know all the men and women that serve this county and strive for excellence, I was honored. But the day that our mayor and this commission had us say prayer before this meeting, I was proud. And I'm proud to introduce to you David Young. He is the senior pastor at North Boulevard Church of Christ. He has over 2,500 members, and he's been preaching since he was 16 years old. He has a PhD from Vanderbilt University, and he has wrote several books, including Following Jesus, the Gospel of Mark. He is a leader not only in my district, but this county, this state, and this country. And David, I want to present this to you as our minister of the day and ask that you lead us in prayer.
Thank you. Absolutely. So, Lord, many of us are very grateful to live in this county. And we're grateful for our spiritual and physical ancestors who hand cleared Middle Tennessee and who created a wonderful place to live. We're thankful for that, and I pray tonight that this august body will carry that great tradition forward, that this will be a place of peace and of mercy and of justice, that it will be a place where people find all the blessings that you have to offer us as people created in your image. It's an honor to pray here. It's an honor to be among these women and these men who care a lot about the work of your hands. Thank you for that, and it's in the name of Jesus I pray. Amen.
Craig, if you would also lead us in our pledge.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, Craig.
If you would call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Gammon. Here. Commissioner Piercy. Here. Commissioner Rather.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, normally we've been given the pledge to the state flag. We vote it tonight.
If you would like to lead that, Commissioner McAdoo, if you would put that up. Commissioner McAdoo will lead us in the pledge to the Tennessee state flag. You may want to stand for this.
Three white stars on the field of blue. God is
Strong and ever true. It is pride and love that we salute the flag of Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. McAdoo. If you would be seated now. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, if you would continue with the roll call.
Next is Commissioner P. Here. Commissioner Cook. Here. Commissioner Jernigan. Here. Commissioner Cush. Commissioner Reed. Here. Commissioner Gurley. Here. Commissioner Turner. Here. Commissioner Allen. Here. Commissioner Stevens. Here. Commissioner Johnson. Here. Commissioner Gammon. Here. Commissioner Harris. Here. Commissioner Dodd. Here. Commissioner Phillips.
Present.
Commissioner McAdoo. Here. Commissioner Irvin. Commissioner Gooch. Commissioner Sereno. We have a quorum, 20 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I want to move the reading of the minutes down to Section J, and it'll become evident when that happens. So we'll go to resolution of sympathy for Angela Walker, and I'll call on Pettus Reed.
think every one of you remember the beginning of the evening of November the 5th, which expanded on into the morning of November the 6th, that occurred over in the Christiana and Midland area of our county, when a tornado at the strength of recorded F2 and speeds at times reaching 165 miles per hour tore through that area, covering a swath across that district of 5.6 miles, causing all types of damage. I think there were 6 buildings totally destroyed, better than 30 damaged, and the loss of 1 life. That evening was an evening that was something that the people of that area will long remember. I can remember a few nights after that, I was called by one of the news agencies out of Nashville that wanted me to come and talk to him about what had happened as far as the aftermath was concerned. And I met him that evening out there on the steps of one of the houses that had been damaged. And he asked me, he said, how is that taken care of by the people out here in this area? And I had to tell him, I said, you just have to know the people who live here. Their resilience as far as looking after each other, the concerns by the people from their churches, from the community, and Rutherford County have been outstanding. And they know how to take care of their people. That's still going on out there in that area. And this evening we'd like to recognize the one who lost their life, and we'd like to recognize that family with a resolution of sympathy. And we'd like to ask if we could, and if they would come forward this time, the Walker family, the family of Angela. Any members of that family that are here this evening, we'd like to ask that they come forward. Before I read this, I want to tell you the Walker family has been something that's, our family has been vital to this county in many, many ways. And when Angela became a part of this family, she fit right into this community and what she has done as far as not only the community out there, but to Murfreesboro and Rutherford County and our university out here. And I'd like to read this resolution of sympathy. Whereas it was with great sadness that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners learned of the death of Angela Walker, a longtime resident of Rutherford County and friend of many. And whereas Mrs. Walker is survived by her husband, Scott Walker, children, Reed Walker and Olivia Walker, father, Rick Heidel, and wife, Sally of Brentwood, mother, Helen Reed Kaswani, and husband Scott of Murfreesboro, sisters Laura Ellis and husband Jason of Nashville, Demosi, Leatherwood, and husband Chris of Christiana, brothers Will Heidel and wife Abby of Franklin, Wes Heidel of Brentwood, father and mother-in-law Bart and Leanna Walker of Murfreesboro, sister-in-law Kristen Carlton and Matthew of Murfreesboro, 10 nieces and nephews. And whereas Mrs. Walker was a University of Memphis graduate and graduate from MTSU with masters, and she served as adjunct psychology professor at MTSU, and whereas she was an active member of the New Vision Baptist Church, and whereas we know that her passing has caused great sadness to her family and friends. Now therefore be it resolved that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners at its regular session on this 13th day of December 2018 does hereby extend sincere sympathy to the family of Mrs. Angela Walker, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of sympathy be forwarded to the family of Mrs. Walker by the clerk of this legislative body. May it be so passed this evening. I would like to ask that all the commissioners at this time please stand, as well as those within the audience, and we'd like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Angela. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you continue to look down upon this family, and you continue to watch over them and protect them and place your loving arms around them. And Father, we ask that you give all of us the ability also to be available to them, to be there whenever they need us. Father, we ask you continue to watch us all, protect us, and guide us. We offer this prayer in thy Son's holy name. Amen.
Commissioner Reed, is that in form of a motion?
That's in the form of motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a resolution of recognition for Patrick Norman. Commissioner Phil Dodd.
That's good. First of all, Commissioner, thank you for that recognition of sympathy. I'm grateful that we can recognize the tragedies in our community, but I'm also grateful that we can recognize the successes as well. So I have an opportunity to do that tonight. We get to honor the success of Patrick Norman. Patrick is, in addition to being a student at Central Magnet, which is a school in my zone, he's also an athlete of some accomplishment, and he's been recognized on a national level as an athlete, so we want to also recognize that success. And also with us tonight are Elizabeth and Rob Norman, Patrick's parents, so thank you all for being here. So Patrick will do the resolution. As I mentioned earlier, all the commissioners here will sign it, and it will become an official document. I'll hand it over to the clerk. It will be recorded into the history of Rutherford County forever. And I think y'all will get a copy of it. I think you'll find something you can keep as a keepsake. So thanks for being here. Resolution of recognition, Patrick Norman, Central School. Whereas Central Magnet School student Patrick Norman has been handpicked by the baseball factory staff as an Under Armour All-American, and whereas Patrick has been invited to participate in the Under Armour All-American preseason tournament powered by Baseball Factory. Whereas the event will take place from January 18th and 20th, 2019 in Mesa, Arizona at Sloan Park, the spring training home of the Chicago Cubs. And whereas he will be competing with and against some of the best baseball players in the country while in Arizona, and will also be honored at a preseason All-American award ceremony. And whereas this is an exciting opportunity for Patrick and his family, we would like to thank him for bringing this fine publicity to our community by his good sportsmanship and inspired team play. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that we extend this resolution of recognition to Patrick Norman and extend to him our best wishes for continued success as he represents Rutherford County in this tournament. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion carries.
And in passing, I would like to recognize Dr. John Ash, who also came in attendance. And forgive me for not inviting you up, Dr. Ash, but thank you for being here. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Next, we have a resolution of recognition for Polly Wall. Commissioner Rhonda Allen. All of the Smyrna delegation.
Yes, I've invited everybody to come join me. That's right, we're a motley crew, this Smyrna bunch. Miss Polly, come on up. She has several members of her family with her, and they have decided to send her up here alone.
They did. They'll pay.
They will pay. I'm certain of that. Hey, will you grab that book on my desk? I want to show that. Polly, as I was preparing this resolution, Polly was kind enough to share with me a book that had been written about the Omni Hut, and you can actually purchase these at Gill's Ace Hardware. Jenny Williams, and I'm telling you, it's a very entertaining and delightful read. Not only will it give you some of the history, of course, of this just institution, is what I'm going to call it. It's an institution in Smyrna. But everything from its name, you would think that the Omni Hut would be a very exotic name with some food reference, and it's not. It's an aviation reference, which probably only Joe Gurley and Polly knew. And so, and then there's just a great story in there.
An Omni station.
An Omni station, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a great story in there about how her dad handled a disgruntled customer who ate his entire meal but did not want to pay. And all I can say is my father grew up on Montego Mountain in Grundy County. He would be proud. He would be very proud. So it's a delightful read. You really should take a chance to get that. Yes, yeah. For anybody who, especially if you've got any Smyrna friends who loved the Omni Hut, they would really appreciate receiving this book. And I think it's a great read whether you've got a connection to the business or not. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Whereas the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners should recognize and celebrate those individuals who make a lasting and profound impact on the people and communities of Rutherford County. And whereas Major James Walls and his wife Doris, who were residents of Smyrna beginning in 1957, along with the entire Walls family, Polly, Jim Walls III, George, Joe, Sally, Brooks, and his wife Jackie, Lonnie, Jim, and Jane's son Frank, and Polly's daughter Beth Morris are such outstanding persons. And whereas Major Walls was the proprietor of the Omni Hut, an original Polynesian, and I didn't say Polynesian, I said Polyasian, I think that was his word, because it was a blend of many different cultures and recipes. So whereas he was the original Polynesian, he was the proprietor of this Polynesian restaurant of his own creation, beginning in the fall of 1960 with the urging and support of his wife Doris, to whom he many times gave credit for the restaurant even being in existence. Whereas prior to retiring from the Air Force on March 31st, 1960, Major Walls traveled the globe in service to his country, all the while exploring, collecting, and perfecting Chinese and Polynesian recipes that originated from locations such as Hawaii, Panama, Detroit, San Francisco, Guam, and many more. He held special pride in his original recipe for Polynesian pit ribs and a learned recipe for his famous teriyaki sauce from his neighbor, Mr. Wong, while stationed at Chanute Air Force Base. And is that available?
Junior's Food on East Main.
That is available at Junior's Food on East Main. This is a total Smyrna commercial, and I'm not even ashamed of it. I'm telling you.
I have a lot of stories to use.
That's right.
I'm making it.
Yeah. Whereas Major Walls was an entrepreneur and a visionary ahead of his time, with a great dedication to great customer service, a strong work ethic, and determination to serve delicious, made-from-scratch meals to his customers, who were known to choose Omni Hut for celebrations for many birthdays, anniversaries, and other special occasions. And whereas the following individuals have contributed to the Omni Hut experience in a noteworthy way, many of their long-lasting employees are listed here in the resolution. For the record, I'm not going to read their names, but Polly knows they're here, and she will repeatedly tell folks this was a team. It was a family effort that made this happen.
It's a group of folks stitched, and you better know what you're doing on Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
That's right. Whereas the Omni Hut is more than a restaurant, it is a distinguished institution worthy of celebration. The continued dedication of the Walls family to their family business and the Smyrna community for 58 years is an extraordinary example for commitment and sacrifice. It is in this way that they have reflected favorably and positively upon Rutherford County. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that this legislative body extends this resolution of recognition to the entire Walls family for the outstanding accomplishment of being a family-owned and operated business for 58 years and for their decades of dedication to the Omni Hut customers. It is with sadness that the Omni Hut era has ended in 2018, but it is with deep appreciation that the Rutherford County Commission congratulates the Walls family for their meaningful and lasting contribution to our local history and will forever be linked to the identity of Smyrna. We extend our best wishes to the Walls family. Resolved this 13th day of December, 2018. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
For some of my family that could not be here tonight, as well as those that did in the shuffle of traffic getting out of Nashville and here and so forth, thank you. We are very humbled. It was a love. Our customers were wonderful. They became the treasure that supported us. That support has turned into a treasure of memories that for our family as well as theirs, and it was just a very unique run with a crew that stitched like fabric, because without them, talking to Buaban, one of my cashiers, we worked together for over 25 years up front, and I'm like, Bon, why did you stay so long? She said, you were okay to work with, but you have wonderful customers. And we did, and we missed them, and we just, some in this room, quite a few. Thank you all very much, and maybe, who knows, we still have sauce. Tidbits are in my head. Thanks to my father, we'll see what we can do with it. Thank you all very much. Very thankful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Next, we have 4 people that have signed up for public comments. First on the list is Rob Mitchell. I'll remind those that are coming up that we have a 3-minute limit.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Will Denami, the Executive Director of the Tennessee Assessors Association.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. It's an honor to be here in front of you today. I was a resident of Rutherford County from '98 to 2003, and every time I come back, I'm always impressed to see how much the community has grown, and it's an honor to see what's happened here. I also want to take a minute to recognize former Senator Bill Ketron, who is now the mayor. He was an outstanding senator to work with, chairman of the State and Local Government Committee in the Senate, and as chairman of the caucus, he continued to serve on that committee and was involved with many of the improvements we were able to make for local government, and I know you're in good hands with him. As Rob said, my name is Will Denami. I'm here on behalf of the Assessors of Property to present an award. And Rutherford County has a lot to be proud of, especially in their Assessor Property Office. Rob Mitchell has been elected 3 years in a row to serve as the president of Middle Tennessee. Russell Key, who's not here with us today, but I was with earlier today, was recognized as the Middle Tennessee Chief Deputy of the Year. And most notably, the Tennessee Association of Assessing Officers. I'm here to present the Excellence in Operations Award for 2018 to Rutherford County and Rob Mitchell for his leadership and the overall operations of the Assessor's Office. This is a very big award. This is a significant achievement for Rutherford County. Rob Mitchell, which, as many of you know, is a walking basket of ideas. His innovation never stops, and his energy is boundless, and we appreciate what he's done, and it's an honor to be here to present this award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Will and the association for this award. I'd like to thank each commissioner here for your support, because without your support, we aren't able to do the job that we need to do. And lastly, I'm most proud of this because this represents a team effort. We are a team, we work together as a team, and we work for the citizens, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish working together. Thank you, Will. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Rutherford County. And thank you, members of the Property Assessor's Office, because this is for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell, and congratulations. Next, we have Teresa St. Clair.
Hello and Merry Christmas. My name is Teresa St. Clair and I live at 2525 Retreat Court in Murfreesboro. Imputed knowledge, write that down. Knowledge of all county business is imputed to every member of the McCreary Law Firm under the Code of Ethical Standards and will be conveyed to all of his private clients without question, and vice versa. We've heard Mr. McCreary fumble around with his definition of conflict of interest. Attached is the TCA definition. There is no ambiguity. Is he intentionally misleading the commission? We've heard him in steering state that he didn't know how he got on the employee benefits. This is not true. Look at the minutes. He specifically asked Melissa Street if he could be put on the benefits and pension plan. He would take them if he could get them. Does he apply this to everything? This may be a violation of Tennessee Code 3916-402, intent to obtain a benefit from your position. We heard Mr. McCreary tell the steering committee that it's only a few cents per resident to pay his salary and that it is simply not true. Under his contract, he is responsible for the Board of Education, but we are paying full salary for another member of his firm who bills the county separately and asks that a check be made out to the firm. Why? Bad legal advice leads to litigation, and how do you know that this firm isn't stretching each hour out as long as it can? Some of you may believe we have too much pending litigation to change attorneys. I say we cannot afford any more bad legal advice that leads to so much litigation. Why are we here after 10 years of complaints of the unethical contract and the self-dealing contained therein? Why does this commission not understand the most simple ethical dilemma created and perpetuated by this unconscionable contract? If Mr. McCreary has such a thriving private practice that is so demanding, why on earth does he need county business? The RNA has complained for nearly 10 years, and instead of proving them wrong, you kick the can down the road, incurring more and more litigation as a result of bad legal advice given to the county. Why did it take 10 years to resolve the Rogers gravel pit? Why did it take 14 years to resolve eminent domain cases? These cases may represent violation of TCA 3916-403B. Why does the RNA have to be the harbinger? Why is this commission not doing this work? If you found out that your friend was stealing from you for 10 years, would you accept the mayor's advice and give him 3 more years? Do you not care about your public record? This contract doesn't come up for renewal until June. I suggest you use that time to visit the RNA and look at the body of work that drives their complaints instead of asking for more bad legal advice. If you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas, but that is all just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sinclair. Next, we have Susan Allen.
Good evening. My name is Susan Allen. I live at 2031 Nelson Lane in Murfreesboro. I'm here tonight to share my takeaway from the December 3rd Steering Committee meeting regarding the RNA presentation and the information we have given 3 separate boards of commissioners over a period of about 9 years. Over that period of time, we have explained and illustrated the questionable, sometimes unethical problems we have observed concerning the contracted legal services of the county. Because of the work and research we have done, major changes have occurred in this chamber. From rescinding the vote for the original legal services agreement until the private act could be updated, to finally getting the county attorney to confirm that he is indeed an independent contractor. The leadership in the firm has changed from Mr. Cope to Mr. McCreary. and you like Mr. McCreary. We get that. He is a very nice guy, and he has convinced you that you are getting the best bang for your buck. And it's easy to accept and embrace what someone you like says. We provided all of you with the Rutherford County Private Act and the LSA with its 4 amendments. You also were provided information how other counties and the city of Murfreesboro organize their in-house legal departments as a comparison. I'm questioning how many of you actually looked at it. If you had, you would have considered the idea of forming an ad hoc committee to be a wise exercise to at least understand the agreement you have with the county attorney and whether it needed revisions or careful reconsideration. What is the rush to proceed with a new 3-year contract 6 months before it is necessary? You have the time before Mr. McCreary's contract ends June 30th to study the issue and transition to an in-house attorney. Some of you actually continue to think going in-house at this point would create a problem with ongoing and pending litigation. Once again, there is no issue with pending litigation since the firm has that contract until June 30th, 2022. Going in-house at this point would be only for general legal services. The big deal for the county would be that an in-house attorney who reaps no financial benefit from taking cases to court would have the opportunity to diffuse complaints before they go to litigation and monitor the ones that are in progress. Remember, the county attorney is answerable to you, not the other way around. When you ask him if he wants to keep his job, it appears that you want him to tell you what to do. You are answerable to the citizens of Rutherford County. You sought the job, and we expect you to do your job with diligence and honor. So we urge you to not proceed with a new contract for Mr. McCreary, but to establish an ad hoc committee to study and understand how legal services for Rutherford County can be better without just accepting the system that has always been in place. Only then can you make a truly independent, informed decision. Thank you. And I wish you all the joys of the season and happy and healthy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Allen. It's 6:30 and time for our public hearing. We have one more speaker under the comments section, but it's time for us to conduct our public hearing, and I'll call on our Planning Director, Doug Demosi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I just have one public hearing to discuss with you tonight, and this is various amendments to the zoning ordinance in relation to what are called cluster box units or mail kiosk regulations. Staff was made aware in July of this year that the United States Postal Service was going to change their mail delivery procedures. Curbside mail service would still be provided for those who currently have curbside mailboxes. However, new developments, residential developments of 8 lots or greater would be required to provide facilities for centralized mail delivery, or as mail kiosk or centralized, cluster box units. This would include not just brand new subdivisions coming in to be approved in our department, but also new sections of existing developments as well. Staff research regulations on CBUs, cluster box units, from various jurisdictions. This is fairly new for Middle Tennessee and for other areas of Tennessee as well, so most of the regulations that we found actually were out of state. Draft regulations were developed based on this research, and a work session was held with the Planning Commission at their October 22nd, 2018 meeting. Revisions were made based on the input from this work session, and a public hearing was held at the Planning Commission on November 13th of this year. The Commission recommended some other modifications, some tweaks to what we were presenting, and those particular revisions and that draft was approved by a unanimous vote in front of the Planning Commission on that same night. I'll provide a brief explanation of these amendments. You'll see that you have a copy of these on your iPad. I can go as in-depth on any of these as you want. I'm afraid if I did, I'd probably bore you all to tears. So what I'm going to do is just kind of give you just a real quick overview, and if you have more specific questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. basically what we're going to require is that we're going to require these particular cluster box units areas in these subdivisions to be on their own lots, separate from any of the residential lots. These lots, we've also put some amendments in here in the related amendments that would not require these particular lots to be the same size as a residential lot. In other words, they wouldn't have to be 15,000 square feet in the RM zone. They wouldn't have to be an acre in the RL zone. They could be smaller than that. They wouldn't have to meet the setback requirements or lot width requirements. These lots and also the box units themselves would be owned and maintained by homeowners associations. This is not something the county is going to own nor maintain. These units would have to meet all applicable building codes as well as United States Postal Service standards, of which there are several. Site plans and Planning Commission approval would be required for these cluster box units as well, including things like landscaping, parking, lighting. We do have provisions in these amendments for that as well. For new subdivisions coming in, we are going to want to see these plans at the preliminary plan stage, which is basically our master plan phase where the development comes in, it's master planned. So the Planning Commission will get a crack at seeing those site plans before approving or while approving the preliminary plans for that. Again, I'll be more than happy to go into as much detail as anybody would like on this. We understand that this is something that we're just starting to deal with, and we know that over time there may have to be amendments to this, but after looking at the regulations and kind of vetting this out, we think this is a good first step in regulating these units. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Demosi? Commissioner Rather.
Took a deep breath before you called my name. Doug, is there going to be a chance that a development doesn't have an HOA? Or
well,
the answer to that
right.
is yes. Then my follow-up question is, who's going to maintain those boxes?
Right. Well, in essence, no, there's not going to be. For any subdivision that's got 8 lots or greater, they're going to have to provide one, even if they don't want to. I mean, unfortunately, we're not in a position to be able to own or maintain these, the county, so it's going to have to fall to an HOA to take care of these things. I will say that the United States Postal Service will, in some instances, grant waivers to these provisions for providing a mail kiosk. What we have seen so far, because even though we're proposing these regulations and bringing them for you today, we've already been dealing with this at the Planning Commission, as those commissioners on the Planning Commission can attest. Really what we're dealing with is just trying to put something in place to deal with this. And these waivers that we're seeing granted are really for final sections of existing subdivisions, things like that. So, if the whole subdivision is already built out and there's one small section left, they have allowed some waivers for that. But to answer your question, they're not going to have a choice at this point.
Other questions at this time? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing open for item 18-5002, amendments to various sections of the Rutherford County zoning ordinance regarding regulations of mail kiosk. Anyone wishing to speak on this topic, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners, I have a motion to approve and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Director Demosi. We'll go back and pick up the last signed up to speak under public comments, and it's Khalif Snelling. Evening.
Thank you guys for letting me speak. I'll be brief. I'm here for a very simple request. It concerns the naming of the bridge over Broad. I was watching the steering committee meeting, and I want to first thank Mr. Reed and the mayor, because at that meeting, they were like incredible in their decision-making process of determining that MTSU should be honored. And that's a wonderful thing. I really appreciate that. In fact, Mr. Pettus was creatively, off the top of his head, suggested 3 names. One was True Blue, one was MTSU, and one was Blue Raider. Now, when I heard the term Blue Raider, what it immediately came to mind is my experience at MTSU and what I learned when I went there. I walked underneath a big giant medallion of Nathan Bedford Forrest, and so I was able to learn a lot about Nathan Bedford Forrest. And I learned that Nathan Bedford Forrest was so polarizing that he maintained a 50 to 100 group of the most elite men in the entire Confederate Army to protect him. And he maintained that guard, that honor guard, 50 to 100 of the most elite fighters. He maintained that throughout the war. The other thing he did was he was asked by the United States government to stop taking white prisoners and killing unarmed, defenseless black prisoners. Nathan refused to stop killing them, and they stopped exchanging prisoners for the duration of the war because of that. Other thing I learned about him was he was the first Grand Wizard. He was also the richest man in Tennessee at the time. He made that by trading in slaves. Now, why does this word raider remind me of him? Because those 50 to 100 elite fighters were known as Nathan's Raiders. And when I went to MTSU, I remember sitting in the center, the student center, and some of you probably remember. Some of you about my age, and you know the black people were over here in the corner, and we didn't feel like we were a part of that university. Since then, MTSU has worked very hard to rid itself of that tarnished image. And I would just suggest one minor request. I love those names that you came up with, True Blue, MTSU, anything like that is wonderful. But let's just take out one word. That's all I pray for you to do. Take out one word, because it connotes all kinds of images in the minds of a lot of people. And if you study what you may know already, please, we don't need to go down that road. This great county has such an illustrious future ahead of it. Why tarnish it? Why add more hateful unnecessarily? It's just one word. Use any of the suggestions that Mr. Reed suggested. I would wholeheartedly agree. But don't, please, just that's all. It's just a minor request. Please, please, one word. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snelling. Next on our agenda is elections and confirmations, and we'll call on the Vice Chair of Steering, Robert Stevens. And as Commissioner Stevens is coming up, I've asked him to take a look at the minutes, a detailed look at the minutes, and be prepared to move on it. So, Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did review those minutes that were presented, and I would make a motion that they be approved as they were mailed out.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of our last meeting. Questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next item is to elect notaries. You'll find a list of applicants on your iPads. I would make a motion for their approval.
We have a motion and a second to elect the notaries as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition to that? Any additions to that? All those in, I guess, did we already vote? I'm sorry. No. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. Who was the second on the minutes? Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you. We need to announce a vacancy on the Industrial Development Board to fill the unexpired term of Nate Schott. And for those interested in serving in that position, you can get an application downstairs at the county mayor's office and have that turned in before our steering committee meeting. We need to fill a vacancy on the Insurance Committee. Steering recommends Ms. Shantae Sherrill, and Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion for her approval.
We have a motion and a second to accept Ms. Sherrill. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Ms. Sherrill, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? And motion to approve carries. Thank you.
We need to fill 2 vacancies on the Correctional Work Center Board. Steering recommends Mr. Thomas Hartley and Mr. David Puckett, and I would make a motion for their approval.
I have a motion and a second for Mr. Puckett and Mr. Hartley. Any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Puckett and Mr. Hartley, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's also an appointment of a judicial commissioner. Our General Sessions judges have nominated Mr. Samuel Benjamin Black for that position. And Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve him.
We have a motion and a second to approve Mr. Black. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, you have before you a list of items for our consent agenda, and I've asked Commissioner Stevens, while he's up here, to also take a detailed look at those and make a recommendation. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've also reviewed each of the items on the consent agenda. I think that they are all in order and appropriate to be there, so unless anyone has an item they would like to remove, I would make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Does anyone have any item you would like to remove from that consent agenda? If not, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Mr. Chairman, it has to be by recorded vote.
I'm sorry, we do need a vote on that. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, would you register the vote, please? If you guys would please vote.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
20 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. I appreciate you sitting me straight on that. Thank you. If you'll notice under the consent agenda, item number 10 is the budget calendar for this coming year. 2 dates you may want to put on your calendar is June the 17th, and that's what we have scheduled for a public hearing on the proposed budget, and then June the 26th, which will be our annual meeting for our annual budget meeting to set the property tax rate. So you may want to make notes on your calendars for those 2 specific dates. And thank the Budget Committee for getting that out so far in advance. We have no unfinished business, and we'll get down to our reports of standing committees. And first on the agenda is the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee, and we'll call on the Chairman, Robert P. Commissioner P.
Well, fortunately, we've got a short agenda tonight, and this only resolution that we're looking at is actually for Paul's, and they're asking to add 3 full-time kennel attendants, and most of the money is coming from part-time personnel, and basically they've had a hard time maintaining employees there. You know, of course, our economy is booming, and the unemployment rate is very low, so there's a lot of competition for folks. Anyway, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the general fund be amended as follows. Increase expenditures for attendance, $37,715, and the associated benefits, Social Security, $40, pensions, $2,430, employment and dependent insurance, $13,950, disability insurance, $40, employee Medicare, $10, for decreased expenditures, part-time personnel, $22,000, and unassigned fund balance, $32,185. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the general fund amendment. Discussion. Hearing none, please cast your vote.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
19 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Health and Ed Committee, Chairman Rhonda Allen.
Mr. Chairman, we have no formal report, but I do have two announcements. On December the 19th at 6:30, there'll be a joint meeting with the Murfreesboro City Schools and the Rutherford County School System with their legislative delegation, and that is an open meeting. Everyone's welcome to attend. On January the 7th at 5 p.m., there's a special called meeting regarding the rezoning, also at the Board of Education. So anybody who's interested in the rezoning that'll be taking place, a formal presentation will be that night as well.
Thank you, Chairman Allen. Property Management Committee, Chairman Alan McAdoo.
Thank you. Property Management Committee have.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Chairman Pettus Reed.
I have a resolution that deals with the changing of the Tennessee Code annotated to provide some highly qualified fire investigators that we will be needing in the very near future due to some situations that's with retirements and things happening at the County Sheriff's Department. Whereas the Rutherford County Fire Rescue Department began its comprehensive fire arson investigation program in 2016. At that time, the fire investigators were deputized by the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department in a joint effort to more effectively address the needs of the community. This also was done with the intent that the responsibility for arson-related investigation would be transitioned to the Rutherford County Fire and Rescue Department. And whereas over the last 2 years, the Rutherford County Fire and Rescue Department investigators performed numerous investigations and logged many hours of training with the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department in preparation for this transition. And whereas in May of 2018, a recommendation from the Tennessee Post Commission resulted in the suspension of reserve deputy programs at the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department and effectively removed the commission status of the Rutherford County Fire and Rescue Department investigators, thereby eliminating their ability to obtain warrants, written subpoenas, made arrests, and performed other law enforcement-related functions that are necessary to assist in determining the origin and cause of fires and bring resolution to arson cases. And whereas fire investigation is a technical process requiring national certification and numerous hours of training and experience to be able to testify in court. And whereas the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office is unable to commit resources to arson investigation due to current caseloads and lack of qualified personnel, and as a result is not involved in cause and origin of determination until detection of a crime by others is reported, by which time much of the evidence may be unrecovered or destroyed in many circumstances. And whereas there is a significant demand for a robust fire and arson investigation and prevention program in Rutherford County, and whereas it is in the public interest to provide additional language to existing statutes to provide highly qualified, full-time Rutherford County Fire and Rescue Department investigators with the resources needed to combat and help prevent the crime of arson. And whereas the Rutherford County would respectfully request Tennessee Code annotated 68102-127B be amended to read as follows. 68-102-127, police powers of commissioner and deputies and municipal and county fire investigators. B, municipal and salary county government fire investigators who have been authorized by the chief of the municipal and county-wide fire department or the director of fire service to conduct investigation relative to the cause and origin of fires and or arson investigations shall also have police powers and shall have the right to make arrest when necessary to preserve the laws of this state of their respect in municipalities relative to case of arson or suspected arson. Whereas Rutherford County would further respectfully request Tennessee Code Annotated 68-102-149B be amended to read as follows. 68-102-149, firearms for fire officials. It is lawful for municipal and salaried county government fire investigators who have been authorized by the chief of the municipal or county-wide fire department or the director of the fire services to conduct investigations relative to the cause and origin of fires and or arson, investigations to carry a pistol or sidearm while on active duty in order to protect their own lives, and to effective the purposes of their responsibilities in investigating causes of arson or suspected arson for the sole purpose of being able to carry a pistol. Such investigation shall comply with requirements of 3917-1315A. Now therefore it be resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county clerk be and hereby is directed to forward a copy of this resolution to the Rutherford County Legislative Delegation asking that the proposed amendments to Tennessee Code Annotated 68-102-127B and Tennessee Code Annotated 68-102-149B be amended and made applicable to Rutherford County for the health and welfare of its citizens. Resolved this 13th day of December, 2018, Rutherford County, Tennessee. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Did you repeat that, Commissioner Kersey.
Do the inspectors at this time wear a bulletproof vest?
Don't think so. Is that right, Chief?
I'd recommend that we furnish the vest. If they put a sidearm on, they're going to become a target. A man toting a gun becomes a target.
I would concur with that. I think that's a separate thing. Doesn't have to be dealt with under this resolution, but can be dealt with for the chief to bring into public safety. I had a long-time law enforcement friend of mine said, if you carry a badge, wear a gun. If you wear a gun, wear a vest. And I think that's very good advice. I'm very much in favor of this, having investigated illegal burns while employed by the county. I was in several situations where I think if I had not been armed, there would have been possible physical altercation. People get really perturbed when you tell them what they can burn, can't burn, etc. So I'm very much in favor of it, having been there and done that. By the way, all these powers that are being granted, we're asking for the state statutes to be amended by our legislature to allow full-time county fire investigators to do exactly what municipal investigators have been doing and the powers that they have for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gurley. Anyone else wishing to speak? Not all those in favor of this resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposition? Resolution is approved. Thank you. Public Works and Planning, Chairman Mike Cush. I think you have two resolutions, Commissioner Cush.
I do, Mr. Chairman, and these are also on your iPads in front of you, and I will begin with N5A. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that due to the limited space remaining in the Rutherford County landfill, there shall be no further free services at the county landfill. Be it further resolved as follows. 1, the charge for brush will be $30 per ton at the landfill. 2, Tires will no longer be accepted at any Rutherford County convenience center. 3, the charge for private passenger car tires at the Rutherford County landfill will be $1 per tire or $65 per ton for other tire disposal for everyone, whether a Rutherford County resident or not. 4, this resolution and its provisions will take effect on the 1st of July, 2019, the health and welfare of the citizens of Rutherford County requiring it. Resolved this 13th day of December, 2018. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Now discussion. Commissioner Gurley.
Yeah, I would just like to know what the thoughts have been expressed in regard to, right now you've got X number of convenience centers. I still see a few tires and so on scattered around in various places, that if everyone, especially from the extremes, other end of the county, have to take their tires to the landfill to dispose instead of taking them to the convenience center, are we going to wind up with tires on the side of the road in places where other people's property that don't want them and so on? Can you give any kind of insight into that?
Commissioner Gurley, that was discussed at the Public Works and Planning meeting. The solid waste manager, Mac Nolan, has requested that the exception of tires at the recycling centers cease, mainly because of the few that they get and the amount that they have to really keep to create a full load. So it's really a cost of transportation, and the fact that so many tires have to build up for it to be economical to haul is one of the issues. There's a huge cost for us to handle tires, and we have to pay for every tire that is disposed of that comes out of his budget, our budget. So there is a possibility for those that want to do bad could do that. That would be wrong, and that would be illegal for those people to do that. But there could be a possibility, much like 1 or 2 times a year where we take in hazardous materials, paint and so forth, that you could establish once a quarter, twice a year, where you could bring in, perhaps at the recycle centers, a tire weekend for those that don't want to drive to the county landfill. But that was not discussed. I'm just throwing that out as an option. But just due to the expense and the hassle at the convenience centers, MAC does not want to take tires any longer. That's all I have to say about that.
Commissioner P.
Yes, I need some clarification under number 3 there, right at the end of that, just after the fees that he's wanting to charge. You're saying for everyone, whether a Rutherford County resident or not?
That's correct.
You're telling me you're accepting tires from outside the county?
That's correct.
Why would we want to do that?
Those people that pay outside the county, those people that come with outside the county must pay, and they have been paying. That's been going on for some time. Only current residents of Rutherford County have not paid anything for brush or for tires.
Well, you just got through telling me how much it's costing us to do this and why he's wanting to do this, but yet you're saying we're accepting outside of the county.
But they pay.
And they're covering the complete cost. It doesn't sound like it.
No, it's a wash. They pay $1 and it costs us $1. But what we're saying is, because of the issues that the gate people have had with people that come in with out-of-county tags but yet may have a county driver's license, there's been issues, there's been calls, there's been folks that are upset, and the fact that there is a cost, whether you're a county resident or not, there is a cost to us. This resolution is going to establish that no longer, county or non-county resident, if you bring in tire or brush, which is the only thing that the county landfill is accepting these days, there will be a charge, whether you're a county resident or not. And it's $1 per regular car tire, and if you bring in commercial tires, those will be weighed out by the ton at $65.
For myself personally, I don't have a problem with this. You know, I pay for disposing my tires when I buy a new set.
Right.
Normally, whoever I'm buying the tires from are disposing of them for me, and there's a charge that I'm paying for that.
Correct.
The other problem that I've got, we've got a similar thing going on with TVs. You know, we're charging people to dispose of TVs now. Well, I'm kind of tired of seeing them on the side of the road out in my area. And I've got a feeling that I may see a few more tires on the side of the road. So I don't know that that's exceptionally good.
Well, I mean, we can't play the what-if game. If that becomes a problem, then we'll have to look at it, or hope that neighbors will start using their cell phone to turn in violators, and we start pressing criminal charges. But it's expensive for us to handle tires and brush. We've been doing it for free, and we can't keep doing it for free. I think Commissioner McAdoo has like to be recognized.
Mr. McAdoo.
I got a question, and it's not concerning tires, but if we have a tornado or something come through Murfreesboro or whatever through the county, which we have in the past, and Murfreesboro City and all others volunteer to pick up the brush or whatever, clean it up in yards and all this, are you telling me that once they clean it up and want to bring it to our landfill, that you're going to charge them?
Chairman McAdoo, I am not saying that, because in those acts of God and situations like that, those things come to this committee or Public Works Committee for discussion, and then resolutions, which I'm about to read next, will cover those types of circumstances that would be an act of God. So there would be some compassion there, which you'll see in a second.
Anyone else? Yes. Commissioner Dodd.
I sit on the Public Works Committee, and this is my second term to sit on that committee. And this topic has been an issue at every meeting in the 4+ years that I've been here. So I'm sorry we can't articulate a good answer to, will more tires end up on the shoulders of the roads? That is a possibility. We have discussed that at every meeting as well, and ultimately have determined that we have to depend on the good character of some people who have tires. Some will continue to dump. I just don't think this will be such a significant increase in that we avoid the opportunity and the necessity to charge some fee from this day forward. So I'll be supporting this resolution despite the concerns about that topic. I think that we just need to move forward and set a new tone.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You ready to vote? We're going to do a roll call vote, so at this particular point in time, cast your vote.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
18 yes, 2 no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution number 2 is N5B as in boy on your iPad. Whereas Rutherford County experienced a Category F2 tornado on November 2nd, 2018, causing damage to 41 properties, including 10 totally destroyed, 5 with major damage, and 26 with minor damage. And whereas Rutherford County, in an effort to support and assist in the efforts of rebuilding said properties, would propose to waive building permit fees for affected tornado victims. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that building permit fees fees normally collected by the Rutherford County Building Codes Department be waived for any Rutherford County resident affected by the November 2nd, 2018 tornado on permits requested through April 30th, 2019. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Commissioner Gammon.
I'm all for this. I just wanted to ask a question because I didn't watch this on the television. This is the fees, but how are we keeping, is the building permits, how are they going to be, will they be able to keep up with the homeowners, what they're doing to the homes? Are they going to be inspected? And so how will they keep record of that?
Well, it will be just like you're building a new house or any remodel job. They will have to go through the regular process of getting the permits and getting the proper inspections, electrical, HVAC, everything else. It's just those fees are going to be waived. Right.
Commissioner Piercy, would you repeat that, please?
There's a list of properties that we'll keep up with.
There was also a list of victims and addresses that were affected by the tornado that was presented to our committee. We can go by that list.
Right.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm assuming we probably need to do a roll call on this too, so at this particular point in time, please cast your vote.
Looks like the voting machine is malfunctioning. We're going to have to do a roll call.
Sure, thank you. I'll do a roll call vote.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen? Yes. Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd? Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno? We have 20 yes vote.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at every meeting, this becomes an issue. There's a difference between a roll call vote and a recorded vote. So when you ask for a roll call vote, you're asking the clerk to manually call every name. If you're asked for a recorded vote, it's on the electronic machine. So in the future, if we want to do a recorded vote, that's what you get with this, and it's so much faster and easier for the public to see who's voting which way.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate you correcting me.
Chairman Phillips?
Yes. Commissioner Piercy.
I really don't know if it's the right time, but since we were already talking on the trash issue, myself and 4 of our other commissioners had the opportunity to visit the Murfreesboro work session on their trash yesterday. It was pretty informative. They'd used a lot of numbers that had come from the GBB, evidently. They had figured out that they were going to put their first charges onto their utilities rather than make a separate tax or fee or whatever. They were going to let CUD bill that out to them. They're really pushing toward the transfer station, it appears. They have figured out they cannot do it by themselves. They were coming with 2 options, one to do it with the group, one to do it by themselves, and they decided it was like 17 to 18% higher if they tried to go alone. And they pretty well decided that that wasn't an option for them. I would like to encourage this commission to come back in here in January and let's start some serious talks about our trash issue. We've passed it on along here for 5 to 6 months, and I think it's time we got together. If we had to make a motion through Public Works to be able to discuss it at a full commission level, I'll be more than glad to do that. Or put it under other business, whatever it takes. But I firmly believe it's time we started this in a motion of progress. They were very pleased at the city that they had made some type of progress. They were just like us. They're teetering back and forth, and now they've made a little progress. I think we need to progress in what we're doing rather than making suggestions, not doing anything, go along for another month, something else comes along, and we still don't do anything. I think we need to have this meeting, just a regular commission meeting, and every commissioner have input on it. Let your feelings be known of what you think and what you think we ought to do. That's the only way we'll ever move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Piercy. Commissioner McAdoo.
I also attended that meeting, and it was a very good meeting, but it's something that I would like to add, and it was in the paper this morning, for the commissioners that represent a district that lie within the city of Murfreesboro. Starting January, for each trash can you have or whatever, you're going to be charged $5. Okay, if the county come along and we're going to need some extra monies or whatever, and we start charging our constituents, to me that would be like a double tax. So therefore, we need to move quickly on whatever we decide to do, just based on that it is a possibility that a citizen could be double taxed within your district.
Thank you, Commissioner McAdoo. I see our Deputy Mayor, Steve Sandlin, in the audience, and Steve has been given some responsibility and accountability as it relates to our landfill. Steve, I would ask that you carry these two requests, or this request, to Mayor Ketron and report back to the Public Works Committee meeting in January as to what the plans are. I see a thumbs up. Okay. Next on our agenda is the Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee. Commissioner Brad Turner.
Thank you, Chairman Phillips. Good evening, Commissioners. We do have several resolutions to present to you tonight from the Steering Committee. The first one you'll see on your iPad is N6A, resolution naming the bridge over Broad. Whereas Middle Tennessee State University, MTSU, is a significant asset to Rutherford County and the city of Murfreesboro and is an important economic engine substantially benefiting the citizens of the county. Whereas MTSU has made significant investments in their campus and Rutherford County in general, and whereas MTSU is the #1 producer of graduates for the greater Nashville economy, and whereas MTSU is the second largest producer of graduates in the state of Tennessee among public institutions, and whereas in 2009 MTSU was ranked among the nation's top 100 public universities by Forbes magazine, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize MTSU and its benefits to Rutherford County and the city of Murfreesboro. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county clerk be and hereby is directed to forward a copy of this resolution to the Rutherford County Legislative Delegation asking the newly constructed bridge over Broad Street in Murfreesboro, Tennessee be named the Blue Raider Bridge in honor of Middle Tennessee State University with appropriate signage and blue floodlighting as appropriate. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for this resolution's approval.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I passed out right before the meeting a copy of this resolution and my handwritten amendment that I'm about to offer to it, if you'd like to read along with it. But after the paragraph that starts with "now therefore be it resolved," I would like to add another paragraph that says this: "Be it further resolved that this resolution is for naming purposes only and does not authorize the design or expenditure of any county funds unless and until approved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners." And I would make that as a motion to amend the resolution.
We have a motion and a second to amend the original motion and resolution. Discussion on the amendment. Discussion on the resolution.
Vote on the amendment.
What's that?
Vote on the amendment.
Okay. I've just been told that we need to vote on the amendment first, so thank you once again for setting these straight. All those in favor of approving the amendment to the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Now we're back to the regular resolution as amended. Commissioner McAdoo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think each commissioner received this letter from Dr. McPhee approving of the naming of the bridge Blue Raider. And I think the world of Dr. McPhee, and I know him, but we have more coming from MTSU than just Dr. McPhee recommendation. We have a MTSU student body president, we have an MTSU alumni president, and we also have the Blue Raider Athletic Association. Before I just go on one recommendation, I myself would like to hear from these other bodies out there at MTSU. That's number one. I myself just like a complete package to come back to us instead of just picking, oh, we're going to name it tonight, funding, what I heard, maybe come private source or whatever. But I don't know why we're in such a big rush to name this bridge without getting this other information. The bridge is not going anywhere. Not going nowhere. I, being an alumni MTSU, I, being a member of the Blue Raider Association, would like to see the input from these other organizations. It may be just me, but being a part of that university out there in the Alumni Association, I think we could wait until we receive some of that information.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yeah, based on Commissioner McAdoo's comments, I would like to, Commissioner Stevens, you can correct me, it's 2 meetings that we can defer to, so that would make it the February meeting, that we defer this resolution until the February commission meeting and allow more input and time to gather it to be brought back to the steering committee and make any modifications to the resolution, that we defer this resolution. My motion is to defer the resolutions until the February full commission meeting, with input being gathered and the steering committees in January and February.
We have a motion and a second to defer this resolution until our February meeting.
I think one thing, I don't know if Commissioner Stevens is going to speak on it, if we do that, we have to get this to our state delegation, and they have to submit that for legislation by, I want to say February 9th. This would not be carried into 2019's legislation from the state delegation. So if we move it to the January one, that's separate, Commissioner Gurley, than moving it to the February one.
That being the case, I will amend the motion for deferment to the January full commission meeting. I think that should give us time.
Who's second?
Commissioner Dodd.
Okay. So instead of to February, the motion is to defer until January. Other discussion? Commissioner Reed.
Just as Commissioner McAdoo said he wanted to know what some of these other organizations have said out there at MTSU, I do know for a fact that the Alumni Association has sent out email to all of their alumni. They have sent out mass emails. They have received mass support for what we're attempting to do. The Blue Raider Athletic Association has done the same thing, and what's come from there. From the MTSU community, we have seen total support in what we're talking about right here. That started all the way back in November. This was discussed back in steering all the way back in November when we first come up with this, the 1st of November. So we've already started over a month and a half discussing this, so it's already been out there. And it's already been discussed. It's already shown up in the newspaper. of what we're talking about. It's been on WGNS. I know it's been there. So it's already out there. And what we're looking at right now is getting the time together to get it out there for our legislative delegation so they'll be able to present this and get us forward and moving forward. And I just think the time and what we're pushing, we push it on into January, we're cutting that very short. And I think that the delay will cause us some problems.
One of the other reasons, Chairman Phillips, if I could speak to Commissioner Reed's point, Commissioner Gurley had asked, it was brought up in our December steering meeting, was we are scheduled to meet with our state delegation in January, and we wanted to formally bring that request to them in the January meeting before the commission meeting too. That's another reason it was. I think Commissioner McAdoo asked about why it was being pushed. That was part of the urgency behind that, was when they meet with us that we get a commitment from them to carry it.
Commissioner Dodd.
Just curious, and Mr. Reed, you may be our resident expert. The Raider name, the use of the word Raider has been expunged from many aspects of the university life, is my understanding. The mascots, has any of that changed over the course of the last recent years as that word has become more controversial?
Commissioner Reed.
What you're talking about there, and I understand that the gentleman that come up here tonight, and I appreciate him being here and saying that, and what we're talking about there, and I know exactly what he's talking about, is what at one time the mascot was a Raider. I mean, what you call, I guess you call a Confederate general at one time, and what he was talking about there. And the time he was talking about as far as the emblem that was out there on the Student Center, in 1975, I believe, is when that emblem was removed. And when this come up today, we had an email or two that have come through on this in question of the Raider name and where that comes from in the Blue Raider. Well, I became interested in that, and I know you may want me to come up there to do it rather than me stand here and trying to look at everybody looking at my back or whatever. But I spent the last 2 days out there trying to figure this out. Why has the term Blue Raider remained so long, and why it has been a part of where everything else may have changed, and why everything else has been moved, why everything else has been taken away. And we tried to do that. So I went back to try to locate that, and I did. And I wanted to know where it come from, where the terminology Blue Raider come from. And it's not where you think it would have come from, not whatsoever, where it did come from. Well, you got to remember, it has not always been MTSU or Middle Tennessee State University or Middle Tennessee State College. It began as normal, the normal school. It began as the Teachers College. It began in 1911, and in 1911, the president of the college decided that the school needed colors, the school colors, like any other school would. And 2 ladies were placed as a committee to come up with colors. I was reading in the history of the first 50 years. I went over to the university. I went to the Alumni Hall. We contacted the Al Gore Senior Research Center. And if any of you have not been to that center, you can go there and find just about anything you need to know about Middle Tennessee in this area, in the history area. And we found there the book that deals with the first 50 years of this university. And we also found the sidelines. And any of you that have been a student out there, you'll remember the sidelines. And anything known to a student or possibly known to man was in the sidelines. And that's the student newspaper. I found the 1960 sidelines where it talks about where did the Blue Raider come from. I found the 1975 sidelines that also gives the same history of where did the Blue Raider come from. And so happens the book from the first 50 years, the study from the 2 sidelines papers, all tell the exact same story, and different writers for each one of them. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to let you know from the first 50 years, it's easier to do this. And this also comes from Mr. Homer Pittard. If any of you remember Mr. Homer Pittard, who also served on this commission and was a county historian and who was at MTSU, has this history. And it seems like the Teachers College, back in the early part when football was first coming around from a lot of our schools, the football team out there at Normal was having a tough time. And when I mean tough time, they wasn't winning anything. And they were finally getting a team, but you know what was happening to them? They were running into a situation of people coming to their games and cheering for them. And I'll just read you this brief section and what it comes to here. After a very tough season, the following season was more successful, relative speaking, with a record of 4 games won and 5 games lost. The late fall of 1934, near the close of the season, the local newspaper, the Daily News Journal, initiated a contest to select a nickname for the college athletic teams. Strangely enough, over 23 years had passed since the opening of the Normal, and yet no accepted rallying symbol had been chosen. Old Normal, Mid-State, pedagogues, state teachers, and many other designations had passed through successive student bodies into oblivion. Pedagogues, if any of you don't know what a pedagogue is, that's a schoolmaster. And they threw that one out due to the fact nobody could spell it. I understand that. As a result of the move by the Daily News Journal, over 240 entries were submitted. Many were extremely appropriate, while others were somewhat uncomplimentary, considering dismissal seasons of the immediate past. Final choice was left to the football team and the entry Blue Raiders suggested by Charles Sarver. The guard on the 1934 teams appeared to be the most appropriate. Sarver's inspiration for Raiders came from the Red Raiders of Colgate in New York, and the blue is obvious. The Daily News Journal concluded the contest in these words. Now, Mr. Reporter back here, this is what your paper said. The name Blue Raiders will well suit the teachers' boys as their colors are blue and white. Since time began, the local team has been nameless, but now, with the inspiration of a new name, they are expected to go places. They will use the new name in the Thanksgiving game, which brings the season to a close. The newborn nickname may or may not have been advantageous in the final game against Tennessee Polytechnic Institute. According to the viewpoint taken by the Raiders, were defeated 12-0. Or to express it in another way, they lost by only 12 points. So as you see there, and as it says in these other newspapers that I pulled from the research center over there, the name Blue Raiders came from Colgate in New York State. They were the Red Raiders, and if you'll go back and research that team, it was some more team. It was a very impressive team. So we have been the Blue Raiders at MTSU since 1934. Had nothing whatsoever at that time when this contest come around that dealt with the conflict of the 1860s. Now, as it went on, some individuals come up with the idea of using that. But in 1975, it was taken off all the buildings. It's no longer used in anything else we do out there. But you know, Blue Raiders is on all of our athletic teams out there. And if you turned on the radio tonight and listened to Sports Talk, that's all they've talked about tonight. They've interviewed from New Orleans, where now 85 of our MTSU Blue Raiders are down there ready to play in the New Orleans Bowl. They'll be on ESPN Saturday night at 8 o'clock, representing this town, this county, and that university out there nationwide. Now, you know, that's what I've always known them as. And I understand your concerns and what you say there. But as that is known right there, and the reason we said Blue Raiders, we think everybody recognizes when you say that in this mid-state area, they think of Middle Tennessee State University, because that's what we are, and that's who we are. But I want to tell you, when I think of Blue Raiders, I think of something much more. I've seen my Blue Raiders over here at Special Kids, helping a child tie their shoes who couldn't tie their shoes. My Blue Raiders, along with some of you other commissioners, I've seen them at the Special Olympics out here. I've seen our star quarterback standing there taking a ball, throwing to a child sitting in a wheelchair and throwing it back. I've seen our Blue Raiders involved in so many things in this community, helping the needy, helping those others in so many different ways, that the term Blue Raiders come to me, and I think others, due to the fact of what they do and what they give back and what they mean. I'm at every game they're at, basketball, football, whatever, and I want to tell you a specific thing that it means to me. I attend their basketball games, and this year we're sort of like what this is said back in 1934. Their season hasn't been that good. But every year I buy a line of season tickets for my grandchildren, and I've got a 3-year-old that no matter what they do on that floor, when those boys come off of that floor and they go to that dressing room, they stand outside and they wait for the children to come, because that 3-year-old goes down that alley and looks for those Blue Raiders, because they throw their arms out and pick up those children and hold them up and hug them. That's the Blue Raiders I see, and that's what I see, that's what I understand. That's our university. That's their fight song, that's their spirit, and that's what it recognizes to me. And that's what I see when we're putting that up there. So what I'm telling you is what history tells us, and I've always heard that if you know history and study history, you won't repeat it, and that's what I'm trying to say right here, and that's where it comes from, Commissioner. I may have told you more than what you wanted to know.
No, sir, thank you. I appreciate that. That was very persuasive, and I hope that I seconded Mr. Gurley's motion to spur debate. And I really needed to hear that, and it was indeed persuasive, and I believe I could support the original motion.
Commissioner Gurley, I believe you were next.
Yeah, based on the edification from Commissioner Reed, I would like to withdraw my motion to defer, and let's vote on it tonight and be done.
The motion to delay till January has been withdrawn.
Whoever seconded it needs to withdraw the second.
Yeah, he said okay. Commissioner McAdoo.
Well, I appreciate the history lesson, and I've heard that before, but there was one key thing mentioned in your history lesson. 1934. 1934, it wasn't a college of minorities out there, by no means. And that's what we're looking at tonight. But let me give you some information that I got. We got the University of Tennessee Volunteers, which we call UT. We got the Tennessee State Tigers, which we call TSU. We got the Memphis State Tigers, which we call MS. Now, why would you want to go ahead and change MTSU to call them Blue Raiders when you could call them MTSU? I did a little research and went out to the university, and the money that they have spent in remodeling out there, I know Commissioner Phillips knows, it's right there beside his house. each interest going into that university in that block work, it do not have Blue Raider, it have MTSU. And that's the reason I'm bringing it up. I think I talked to a couple of commissioners earlier. The mascot name can change. And history tells us that a lot of colleges and universities have changed their mascot names. But the initials that I'm looking at will never change. Why not wait until January? I think our state reps are going to be the one we have to sell on this idea. Why not wait until January? I'm still saying why we have to make haste and do it tonight. Now, the commissioner mentioned that the Alumni Association, the Blue Raider Athletic Association, which I'm a member of, but he never did say anything about the MTSU student body. Student body, the young ones that are going out there, they have a student body and they have a student body president. Why can't we wait until January to get their input? I just don't see the reason for me to hastily do this tonight, you know. And I'm still saying that we really need to wait until January.
Thank you, Commissioner McAdoo. Anyone else? Commissioner Allen.
I'm never one who likes to overcomplicate what should be a simple process, and you would think naming a bridge for MTSU should be pretty simple. But this is one of those times I think it does require some consideration. I actually mentioned to Mr. Sandlin before the meeting, I was involved in a somewhat similar process as we were doing downtown revitalization in Smyrna. We wanted to add a sculpture. And so there was a large committee formed, and we spent a lot of time researching what type of sculpture, what materials it would be, who would we have do it, that sort of thing, who's going to pay for it. There's a lot that goes into it. So as from the very beginning, when we began talking about naming this bridge, my mind immediately went to the details, which is, the signage. What's the material going to be? What's the font style? What's the size? What's the coordination with TDOT going to be? We talked about the lighting. Is it going to be, the blue? Is it going to be multicolor? Who's going to pay for that? What's the cost of installation? What's the cost of operation? There was some mention that we were going to get private funding to cover that. And so my suggestion to Mr. Sandlin was, perhaps we need a committee formed, and so that way you've got folks from MTSU, City of Murfreesboro, because they got to look at it all the time. Folks from the county commission. Maybe be wise if you have a design committee. And based on this conversation tonight, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be wise to have that committee come up with the name, and then that way you do have input from all the different entities, all the different organizations that have a very vested interest in this. What I don't mind is, I think we all share the same intent, at least that's my impression, is we want to honor MTSU. And, this is having this bridge in this way and doing it, I think is a wise thing to do. So, I could be persuaded to, go ahead and vote on this tonight. I could be persuaded to wait and form a committee, because there's a lot of work that comes with this decision. So I'll just throw that out there, and we can vote, vote the way you want to vote. But just know, having been through that process, it's more than just let's pick a name and let's vote. And it might take not this legislative session to make that happen if we want to really be thoughtful and considerate about how we do it.
Anyone else? We have a motion on the floor as amended. Any other discussion? I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. If you would, please cast your vote for the resolution as amended.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
13 yes, 7 no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, next on your agenda, you'll see a resolution for item N6B2 regarding the general legal representation for the legal services agreement. Whereas by private act effective 2010, Rutherford County was authorized to provide for the terms, conditions, terms of appointment, functions, and duties for the county attorney and related legal services by private contract for non-exclusive legal services with private lawyers. Whereas Rutherford County entered a legal services agreement effective July 1st, 2010, that appointed a county attorney and provided for general legal services and litigation and extra services. Whereas the legal services agreement was amended by a first, second, third, and fourth amendment to the original legal services agreement, all of which were properly adopted by the county commission. Whereas the said fourth amendment provided for the services of a county attorney and general legal services through June 30th, 2019, and the provision of litigation and extra services through June 30th, 2022. Whereas at a regularly scheduled steering committee meeting on December 3rd, 2018, the steering committee unanimously voted to recommend an extension of the legal services agreement for general legal services and for Josh A. McCrary to serve as the county attorney through June 30th, 2022. Whereas the attached Fifth Amendment to legal services agreement for the continuation of general legal services and for Josh McCrary to serve as county attorney as permitted by the private act, a copy of said Fifth Amendment to legal services agreement being attached hereto as Exhibit 1 is incorporated herein at length as if set forth herein verbatim. And it is on your iPad too if you have not had a chance to look at that. That's attachment number 1 is referenced in the resolution. Whereas the county mayors have been advised that he and or the county commission can seek outside legal services to review the Fifth Amendment to legal services. And whereas it is the best interest of the citizens of Rutherford County to extend the county attorney and general legal services to provide that Josh A. McCreary continue as county attorney through June 30th, 2022, and to enter into said agreement, said Fifth Amendment to legal services agreement. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the agreement for Josh A. McCreary to serve as county attorney and for the provision general legal services under the legal services agreement be extended through June 30th, 2022, and that the Fifth Amendment to legal services agreement shall be and hereby is adopted and approved. Be it further resolved that the appropriate officials for and on behalf of Rutherford County be and they hereby are authorized to execute the Fifth Amendment to legal services agreement and any and all other documents required or necessary to effectuate the terms of the amendment as set forth therein on behalf of Rutherford County, Tennessee. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for this approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Now discussion. Commissioner Gurley.
Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments, and then I would like to offer an amendment to the resolution. I made amendment last year, 1 year ago, to limit the county attorney portion of the legal services agreement to 1 year. It was my hope that during that time the commission would study in detail what the structure of our legal services in Rutherford County should look like. That really hasn't happened. It's my firm belief that the structure of legal services in Rutherford County should be based on the right way to do it, not cost as a primary focus. And furthermore, I think it's not the responsibility of the RNA or any other group, but the commission to determine that. My amendment to the resolution is to allow the mayor, and I furnished this to the clerk and to Commissioner Turner and so on, so they have it, to allow the mayor to appoint an ad hoc committee to study the legal services structure for Rutherford County and to report back to the commission no later than the September 2021 meeting. That gives 32 months to study this and determine how best we should structure the legal services in Rutherford County. That's not part of the amendment. I've furnished the amendment. The committee is to be composed of the mayor, the chairman of the steering, the vice chairman of steering, deputy to the mayor, 2 local attorneys, and 1 citizen, move this 13th day of December 2018.
We have an amendment. Is there a second to the amendment? And a second to the amendment. Now discussion on the amendment.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Commissioner Cush.
Commissioner Gurley, help me with the math here. If this were to move forward, the ad hoc committee, as you've proposed, has until September 2021 to come up with their findings. Is that correct? Okay, so that would leave from September to June 30th of 2022, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is what the current drop dead date would be for the expiration of the current attorney contract. Is that right? So there'd be about a 7 or 8 month window then for discussion, negotiation.
Right. That would be, in other words, this committee would report back in the September of 2021 to the September 21 commission. They could report back sooner.
Right.
But it would give at least from September to December where we would be in the same situation once again or even on further. So I think that would be adequate time.
And if I may, with a follow-up, is the envision then of this ad hoc committee perhaps to, certainly review the current contract, but then, if need be, massage, rewrite, totally put the reconstruction of the contract back in our hands, or private citizens or outside legal, anybody that's currently not tied with the current attorneys group?
It would be my hope that we look at the entire legal services for Rutherford County in detail.
Right.
That includes all aspects. The committee would have the opportunity to pull in whoever they thought was necessary. I would think that would be department heads, all kinds of input from various groups and so on. That I've proposed a formulation for the committee that I think would give some variety to it, some expertise. But then the committee would have that option to bring in whatever resources that they needed, and I would hope that they could get this back. And obviously, my intent by including the chairman and vice chairman is to keep this as part of steering's process.
So then this 8 or 9 months would then also give time to advertise. If you wanted to go in-house, this would give...
If that was what was decided, you know, I don't have any preconceived ideas.
Right, I'm just...
And whether it should be in-house, total external,
right,
or some kind of combination thereof. So I think I don't have a preconceived idea. I think that's what needs studying and presenting to this commission in detail.
Commissioner Gammon. It would be good.
Actually, the TV needs Commissioner Gammon.
All right, like I said, this is the first for me. I've kind of like told Commissioner Phillips I was going to sit and be quiet a while, but on this particular subject, reason I seconded that, the main reason was I've worked with the county attorney's office probably as close as anybody has in this county personally. Josh himself or Mr. McQuarrie has done an outstanding job as far as I'm concerned. I've never had an issue I couldn't get an answer from them. And I think, you know, well as anybody, the sheriff's office had plenty of reason to talk to the county attorney. The issue here is I've seen some speculated figures that come up that says you need this many people, that many people. Well, it's kind of like what we used to do with the sister city, I call it, is Hamilton County. There's so much they were ahead of us. They had time to grow. They had time to lay their field and plow it. We've been since in the 80s going 110 miles an hour, and everybody knows that. But you get what you pay for, and it's not always about the money. It's the quality of what you get. The issue that I have is I think that we do need to study this a little more. Nothing against the county attorney at this point. And if we decide to stay that way, that's fine, but I think we have to look at the true dollars. Hamilton County right now, I believe, has 4 attorneys and 3 assistants. You can't do this county any less than that. And whatever you figure it in, whatever the cost is going to be for that attorney and the assistants and all this, you're going to have to look at that. And you've got to have an office and everything, which we have a judicial building over here to do that. But I really think that if the way we're growing, you have to look at these things. And it's nothing against the county attorney at all. Like I said, I've worked extremely close with him and his associates in that office, and I think highly of them. But I agree with Mr. Gurley that I think we've got to look at this. The citizens deserve for us to look at this. That's what we're supposed to do. So I don't see an issue with doing a study if we don't want to continue, if we want to stay where we are. But you've got to visit people. You've got to not reinvent the wheel. You've got to see how they're doing it, where they made their mistakes, and go.
Commissioner Gammon. Anyone else? Commissioner Gooch.
Mr. Chair, I was just going to suggest that if we want an ad hoc committee, I think it should originate from the steering committee instead of an amendment on an existing motion. I'm not opposed to it, but I really think that it needs to come from the steering committee.
One particular comment, I maybe agree with that assessment. The makeup of the committee is somewhat, to me, ambiguous. The steering committee could change every year. The chairman could change. The vice chairman could change. Even the deputy to the mayor could change from month to month. So I'm not 100% sure that we can actually decide who's going to be on that committee now, and that structure still be in process the following year or the year after.
And that's why I think it should come through the steering committee. So I agree with that.
Commissioner Gurley?
I agree. I mean, I served on Public Works my first year on the commission. I went off of Public Works. I've been on the 2 committees that I'm on right now this makes my 4th year, 5th year on Public Safety and 4th on Health and Ed. People can change. I think other people can, if they do change in midstream, then that may bring in fresh ideas again. Those functions are not going to change. You would seek to, the deputy to the mayor could change. The mayor's not going to change during this time, hopefully, barring some catastrophic event. You would seek 2 local attorneys that I would, maybe I need to amend this or modify this slightly, that right now I've got the mayor appointing this. I would be just as comfortable to change that to the steering, and then the committee still be composed of the mayor. I think it needs to be a cooperative venture. With the mayor running the executive part of government and us running the legislative part of government. But if people would be more favorable, but my point was that the chairman of steering may change. Is the mayor is going to be there, and that's the reason I put, this is an ad hoc committee to determine and dig in to how things ought to be, to investigate and report back to us. We are the ones responsible for how things ought to be, and the citizens will look to us to do it right. And so I really don't see a whole lot of problem with the structure. I don't think, we know the mayor's not going to change. The chairman of steering could change. The vice chairman of steering could change, but there will still be a chairman of steering. There will still be a vice chairman of steering. The local attorneys, whoever was appointed, that process would go through as for any other committee appointment and be picked and reviewed by steering, and a citizen the same way. And so I really don't see any major issue with the structure of it. I guess that's up for debate. The whole objective is to get something moving. It's kind of like Commissioner Piercy with the landfill. We need to get something moving because We didn't do anything over the past year. This has been batted around for years. We're growing like exponentially, so we don't have time and I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Allen?
My issue is the same as Commissioner Gooch's, which is I feel like we actually already have a committee. I mean, the county attorney answers to this commission. We appointed a steering committee. The steering committee handles all legislative and legal affairs. And so in my mind, we already have a committee. If they want to consult outside folks and bring other folks in, that's fine, but that's their job. That's what they need to be doing, is making a recommendation to this body. If they want to take it up as an item to study, again, I'm wide open to that, but I don't feel like a separate committee needs to be set up to do this, and I don't feel like it needs to be an attachment to this or an amendment to this agreement.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Commissioner Rather.
I agree with everybody. The only part of that amendment that gives me some concern is you want 2 attorneys and you specified local attorneys. Is that correct in your amendment?
That was, I have no problem with striking local out of that, pulling in expertise from, if you've got people, my thought was that people local here would be more willing to serve. I don't know that you're going to get someone from Memphis or Knoxville or Chattanooga or something, an attorney to come up here and serve voluntarily on an ad hoc committee. But I have no problem with striking local, and I have no problem with changing in the first paragraph to changing mayor to steering committee. I just want to get something moving, and that I think it needs to be looked at in detail.
The reason I asked that question, and we don't have to go to Knoxville or Memphis or anything, we could even go to Nashville. But if we bring 2 local attorneys into that committee, then we may be eliminating, if we decide to go in-house, we've eliminated 2 attorneys that we probably shouldn't hire in that position because they did serve on that committee.
Well, I would hope that it's made clear to them that that's not part of their consideration, that they're serving outside. I think that can be cleared up. I mean, I would hope that someone would not want to be on that committee and write their own job spec.
Well,
I can see your point, though.
If we have local attorneys on that committee, and one of them or both of them are considered, it's just the appearance. I mean,
that's the reason I said I would hope that an attorney would not want to serve on that committee and create that appearance of impropriety to start with. I think he or she is in violation of their professional responsibility right there just to do that. So I really don't think that most attorneys would put themselves in that position. But if you want to strike local, I have no problem with that.
I just think it would, in my mind, it would appear better for all of us if that attorney or attorneys maybe came out of Nashville or outside of Rutherford County. That's just my thoughts. Something to consider.
We seem to be getting really hung up on the makeup of the committee. Let's move past that. Commissioner Gurley, would you strike the makeup of the committee completely out and say allow the mayor to recommend to the steering committee an ad hoc committee to study?
Mr. Chairman, this is not the mayor's responsibility. The state law says that the county commission is charged with appointing the county attorney. Over the years, our mayor's office has just assumed all the responsibilities and roles that the county commission is supposed to be doing. the mayor doesn't tell us what to do. We give the mayor the authority and give him directives on what to do. So this is our problem to solve, not his, and it needs to be our decision. But like these people have said, we've already got a steering committee. I don't understand why we need to set up another one, and certainly that has nothing to do with our contract that's up for discussion tonight. We're debating something that has absolutely nothing to do with this contract. It's not germane to the current motion. So anyway, I would encourage you to vote no on this. We're starting to chase our tail around about something that has nothing to do with what we're dealing with tonight. If a committee wants to be set up, let's bring it to steering and do it the right way there, not attach it to something that's unrelated to it. And Mr. Chairman, I would call for the question.
We had a call for the question on the amendment and a second. All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposition? The question has been called. We're voting on the amendment to the original resolution.
Mr. Chair, can I ask the clerk to read back that amendment to make sure there's no confusion, please?
The amendment to the Legal Services Resolution allow the mayor to appoint an ad hoc committee to study the legal services structure for Rutherford County and to report back to the commission no later than September 2021 meeting. The committee to be composed of the mayor, the chairman of the steering committee, the vice chairman of the steering committee, the deputy to the mayor, 2 local attorneys, and 1 citizen. Move this 13th day of December 2018, and it's proposed by Commissioner Gurley. Ready to vote? We're voting on the amendment only. And we're also going to have a recorded vote on this. Ready to vote? Please cast your vote.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
4 yes, 16 no. Amendment fails.
Amendment fails. We're back to the original motion. We have a second. We have a motion and a second to extend the legal services agreement. Any other discussion? We're also going to have a recorded vote on this, so please cast your vote on the original motion.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
20 yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
Commissioners, next on the iPad, you'll see a resolution regarding the County Powers Relief Act. This was discussed. Chairman Phillips brought this conversation and resolution forward to the steering committee as a conversation piece around the idea that everyone in this room knows about growth doesn't always pay for itself. So there was conversation related to how do we continue to figure out ways to increase funding to meet the growth and demands of Rutherford County. Whereas Rutherford County has experienced and will continue to experience exponential growth, whereas Rutherford County would greatly appreciate the possibility of exploring options other than property tax increases to fund growth, whereas by private acts of 1996, Chapter 215, Rutherford County adopted an act known as the Rutherford County Development Tax Act, whereas the said Rutherford County Development Tax Act was in place before the state legislature enacted the County Powers Relief Act as codified in TCA 67-4-2901, and whereas while the County Powers Relief Act provided the exclusive authority for the creation of impact fees on developments after its enactment, TCA 67-4-2913 specifically authorize pre-existing development taxes, such as the Rutherford County Development Tax Act, to remain in place and continue because they were in place prior to June 20th, 2006. Whereas the Rutherford County Development Tax Act does not itself provide a mechanism to adjust the amount upward if needed under the said act, and since 2006, Rutherford County has experienced and continues to experience exponential growth beyond that contemplated in the County Powers Relief Act, justifying alternatives to property tax increases to fund growth. And whereas in Tennessee Attendant Journey Opinion number 07-57, the Tennessee Attorney General opined that General Assembly could expand the exceptions in Tennessee Code annotated 67-4-2913 for counties with pre-existing private acts to follow for the amendment of these private acts to authorize the imposition of a new tax or an increase in the existing tax rates. Whereas Rutherford County has a need and wishes to be exempted from the prohibitions and limitations of the County Powers Relief Act to have more options. Whereas Rutherford County Commission deems it to be in the best interest of Rutherford County and its citizens to request the state legislature by and through the Rutherford County delegation to amend the County Powers Relief Act to provide exceptions and or exemptions for Rutherford County based on its growth, or after investigation by the state legislature by another method deemed appropriate by the state legislature, to allow Rutherford County to have the additional options for funding growth other than property tax increases. Now therefore be it resolved by Rutherford County Board of Commissioners to respectfully request the Rutherford County Legislative Delegation to propose a bill to amend the County Powers Relief Act to provide exemptions or exceptions from the Act for Rutherford County based on its growth or after investigation by the state legislature, to amend the Act as may otherwise be deemed appropriate by the state legislature to provide Rutherford County alternatives to funding growth other than increasing property tax increases. Be it further resolved that the county clerk shall mail certified copies of this resolution to the Rutherford County delegation of the Tennessee General Assembly. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for its approval.
I have a motion in several seconds. Discussion. We're going to have a recorded vote on this. If there's no discussion, please cast your vote.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the vote.
20 yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
And then finally, Commissioners, on your iPad, you'll see a resolution to urge the General Assembly to support restoration of Registers Commission. Heather Dauburn came to the steering committee last year and presented the same request to improve the funding countywide for the Registrar's Office. If memory serves, and Deputy Mayor Sandlin might have to help me here, someone on the steering committee, I believe that Mayor Ketron said it failed in the House. There was no proper sponsorship in the House, so this did not move forward in the last legislative period. Registrar Dauburn has brought this back up to the steering committee, asking us to approve it again. Last year we passed it. I believe it was unanimous with the body of the steering committee and the commission, and she's brought this forward again, asking us to send this on to the state delegation as well. Whereas the registers of deeds were entitled to retain a 5% commission for collecting state taxes levied under TCA 67-4-409 prior to 2006, whereas in 2006 TCA 67-4-409 was amended by Public Chapter 989 to provide that 52% of the Registrar's Commission was to be retained by the state and credited to the State General Fund. Whereas the County Officials Association of Tennessee will seek legislation to restore the entire 5% commission to the Register of Deeds. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Tennessee General Assembly is strongly urged to support this legislation restoring the full 5% commission to the Registers of Deeds. Be it further resolved that the County Clerk shall mail certified copies of this resolution to the members of the Tennessee General Assembly representing the people of Rutherford County and send a copy to the Executive Director of the County Officials Association of Tennessee. Resolved this 13th day of December 2018. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for this approval.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. I can do voice. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you.
And again, Chairman Phillips, just one more thing for the commission body and for the public. We are working on scheduling a meeting with our state delegation that is traditionally hosted by the steering committee on the first Monday in January this year. In 2019, first Monday is New Year's Day, so we're looking, or December 31st. We're looking to move that to January 7th in these chambers. We're waiting on confirmation from the state delegation, but that's the plan for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Turner. That concludes our agenda. Announcements? Greg? Commissioner Harris, I'm sorry.
I was a football coach at Blackman High School, Middle Tennessee Christian School, and for some people who are not very familiar with high school football in Murfreesboro, it's been top of the top. And these coaches work 7 days a week, 50 to 60 hours a week, and little or no pay. My good friend that I want to just give a shout out to is for 10 years we could not win the title. 10 years. And after 10 years, we finally won the state championship at 6A. And I want to congratulate my good friend Kevin Creasy and all the patrons. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Anything, Commissioner Piercy?
I would like to commend you on the job you have done tonight on chairing our commission. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you putting up with my inadequacies. Thank you. Anything else? Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, the 17th of January 2019. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We're adjourned.